farmer. Mountain back to Atlantic Ocean. Upon me hills to book country. To educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah, 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 yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey. In diaspora. Current affairs. Reliable information. History. Ooh. Talking about culture. Politics. Education. Entertainment. Business. Sports. Advertisement. Articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia. From education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
And I am Anthony Sear, and a pleasant welcome to Tough Talking Thursday, usually hosted by our CEO, Mr. Dennis Jar. I am in the driving seat today, and I'm happy to be hosting Tough Talking Thursday, and I will be tough. Our panelists, some we expecting to comfortably seated to engage, and we have a unique topic as always to Tough Talk on. The topic is the rescue mission of Unity Party on course. They came to rescue us. They came on a mission of rescue. That mission, we want to know 9 months into operation now, is that mission on course? Are there reason to believe that at long last Liberia will be rescued? The panelists are well versed with the issue, and we will assess how we are doing and whether or not this rescue mission is on course. Seated and ready is the senior panelist here at Talking Thursday, Dr. Duke. Dr. Duke, welcome. How you doing? How's family?
Thank you. We're doing good. And Kanye, it's good to see you from Monrovia. And I'm ready to listen to all the gossips he's going to tell us about what's happening on the ground.
Thank you, Dr. Duke. Also joining us is Focus on Liberia resident economist, Mr. Thomas B. Kane, who has moved to Liberia after his study and joining us from the nation's capital. Tom, my brother and friend, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Great to be joining you from Little Miami.
The good thing is the other Miami is now Florida. I think so.
It's good to be back and great to see you all.
Yeah, but before we get to our discussion, Tom, always good to get one's own assessment. You have just returned home. How things going? How are Liberians feeling right now?
Things are pretty much what I left in 2 years. This is a new government.
Mm-hmm.
Like others say, this is a transition year. So nothing much has drastically changed. The economy is not performing very well. Even the president says that. Everyone knows that things are difficult. So I think people are basically waiting to see what's going to happen next year. after the development plan is in place and the national budget designed based on the development plan. So everyone is patiently waiting to see what happens next year. This year is gone. I mean, for the
All
fact that
right.
the budget that we're working on was developed by Samuel 12, I don't think there's any much thing we can expect from this year.
The people are patiently waiting, and I think they are waiting to be rescued because one thing, based on the election result, we cannot agree on is that thing was not that great. So the people agreed to the rescue operation. The rescue operation is in full swing now, I can say. But whether or not they will be rescued, that is why they are patiently waiting. Now, for this topic, this is what we're going to do. We are going to look at some areas after assessing whether or not we even had a rescue mission in the first place and whether it was structured and satisfactory enough, worthy of a rescue operation to deliver a rescue for the Liberian people. We will assess that and we will look at some areas. For example, the performance of the executive branch of government is key to rescuing the nation. How is the executive branch performing? We're talking the president here. We will also be looking at appointment and scouting of talents, the people, the rescue soldiers, those people who will be in the field to carry on the rescue operation. How prepared have they been? Are they right now in carrying on this rescue operation? We will assess that. And not forgetting about whether or not we have departed from business as usual and whether or not the right tone has been set and whether the right pace is also emotion. We will be assessing that. No government function without a budget. And you heard our resident economists, they're talking about the previous budget that this government inherited, that government, on a very rough start. But the Unity Party have to recast the budget to meet its priorities. We want to know whether or not the Unity Party's budget aligns with the arrest agenda. So we'll be looking at some priorities areas there. And of course, not forgetting the rule of law. Remember, arrest is agriculture, road, and the rule of law. So we'll talk about rule of law and tie it into addressing impunity, one thing this government claimed it came to earn. Not forgetting reform effort policies and development projects. Those are the things we'll be looking at. So the stage is set. If you have just joining us, we want to say welcome. Hit the share button. This is the place of education and serious discussion. Let's get started. And Dr. Du, I'm going to start with you. My first question is the one that may annoy you. Did we even have a rescue mission in place, Dr. Du? If so, what it actually was it satisfactory to you?
I would say I'm as satisfied as President Barker would be because I think he got his whatever I think he's been saying this for a few days now that I think he's not satisfied. I don't think the agricultural sector that he's betting on has, moved. Education has not moved. We could talk about the budget issue, but we could also talk about, government communicating its work or some, I don't know how to put it. It's like there's something missing, some link missing somewhere. You don't expect government to come in overnight to change everything, especially after 6 years of one administration, and then you come in. So you don't expect changes to happen overnight, and you are in a so-called democracy. And I think Barker had other problem. I think his biggest problem has been this coalition. The fact that he was elected by a large coalition, and people were able to take big chunks out of the government. And that somehow, paralyzed the government. Somehow, coalition government don't work. They never worked. They either, there for like 6 months, 7 months, so that you break up and then you go do something else. But the way it is going, yes, you get my answer. Yes, the rescue mission is probably taking off. Yes, not taking off yet, but let's see what the development agenda will say and how long Barker will say, okay, I'm going to implement this in so many time, so much time. So far, I think he's just trying to sit as a government. I think we're still as Thomas said, we still need transition period, really in the transition period from Tuea to Boakai. And I don't think that is being completed yet.
And that will do the foundation of my question actually was, did we even have anything in place as a rescue mission? Did we even have one actually? Or was it
Well,
a slogan, you think?
well, rescue mission. Well, rescue was a campaign slogan. So it will not apply to governance. Governance is something different. I think if you
So,
want to
so in
just,
the true sense of a rescue mission, we didn't have any such thing in place, and it was a slogan. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
yeah, it's a slogan. It was a campaign slogan. Everybody took it. You know, rescue mother, rescue auntie, rescue uncle, rescue princess, and all of that. So it was a campaign slogan that worked. Every campaign had a slogan, so that worked. But I won't say, okay, are we rescuing the country? Is working making different decisions that will impact governance, rule of law, agriculture, education? We don't sit there now because we don't have his real development agenda on site. Until we see that, I think we're just comparing the campaign promises to the governance process, which are two different things.
Thank you. Let me now welcome Mr. Ahmed Salih, focus on liberal governance advisor, who is always here on Tough Talking Thursday,
Igamatai.
giving his
I'll
perspective
put it in the mail.
on national issues. He works here. We don't pay him, but he always here and he doesn't complain. Mr. Salif, welcome. How you doing? How's family?
Harmless well. Thank you, Anthony. I hope yours is well as well. And it's always a pleasure to be here with these distinguished minds and participate in a Liberian public square. We're here. We're contributing our little quota to national progress.
Thank you. And let me come to you, our resident economist, Mr. Thomas Kane. I'm still trying to get to the beginning of all this. And it did say when you don't plan, then you have problem, right? So my question before we get to the areas, how we're doing, I really want to know what was the rescue mission? What was a slogan, as Dr. Dupole was a campaign slogan? What was it actually set to do? What was it intended to correct, if you don't mind? You are muted.
I agree with that. It was a campaign slogan, but there was a deeper meaning to that campaign slogan. I mean, with the way the country was run for the past 6 years under President Weir, where we were retrogressing on a couple of fronts internationally, with the way we interacted with even our um, international partners here in Liberia and our engagement with international bodies. The signs were out there, and it was clear that we weren't moving in the right direction. From 2018 to 2019, when the government mismanaged the fiscal affairs of the country, started to take money from donors' accounts, and all of the things that happened. 2019, the economy breaks down. By the time they could recover, COVID had come. And so we weren't just going in the right direction. So the point was we needed to rescue the country from that retrogression that we saw for 6 years under President Weir. And I think the election result validated that the people of Liberia did not want 6 more years of President Weir's regime. So I think, like he said, it was a campaign slogan. It was bought by the population, and eventually they manifested that at the ballot box. So definitely there was a rescue project. And part of that was actually documented. If you look at the Unity Party platform that they released, there were some things they put in there. And then they had this arrest um, uh, agenda that they developed even before they became a ruling party. So I think where the problem is the manifestation of those witches that were put out during the campaign, and that we can talk about for the past 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months of governance that they have had. But just to answer your question, yes, there was something the country needed to be rescued from. It was packaged, Because it was a political campaign, it became a slogan, and then eventually it won the Unity Party in her coalition, the 2023 elections.
Thank you. Mr. Ahmed Salih, I would say this is your baby. Politics is a serious business. You are a man who very careful about words. Words have meaning. Rescue mission. This is a country that was in trouble in terms of governance, many will argue. And now we have a team coming into place saying, hey, we are on a rescue mission here. My question to you is that did we have a structure in place that could actually hit the ground running with the rescue operation from the get-go? You are muted, sir.
Thank you for that question. And I think Thomas and Dr. Duke have set the context for us here. There's no question the country needed to be rescued. We were retrogressing. We were making progress as we should have been making. And we were in fact dangerously doing things that were going beyond retrogression. So if there was this view that we ought to intervene in a way that would be drastic, in a way that would really put the country back on course and begin to make progress. We were already behind. We are already behind. And so it was that context, the whole campaign slogan sort of emerged that, look, we need to rescue. JNB is here to rescue Liberia. The Unity Party is here to rescue. Elect us, we will rescue the country from where it is. And so if you go back, I don't know what the premise of the question is, to reconstruct and sort of reverse engineer to see whether they had a government in place coming into the election. I'm trying to understand that. But clearly you had a campaign team. You had an organization, the political structure, the Unity Party organization, and then the candidates campaign organization that had a framework, they had a structure, they had a platform, and obviously the candidate had in mind his vision for the country, where he thought Liberia needed to go and how he will get the country there. We had those, remember on Tough Talking Thursday, we sort of we went through some of those agenda many times on the different platforms and so on. So there was no question that they had a structure in place for the politics, for the electioneering politics. Now, that is a different thing. You campaign, you have slogans, and then you win. When you win, the question is, what kind of team have you assembled? What kind of government have you constituted? Who is in this government? And how are they delivering? And then you design some people design before they form their vehicle. Some people, Jim Collins will say, you have your vehicle, you have the bus, and then you try to figure out who gets on the bus and who sits on which seats, who sits in which premium seats, and determine your destination. You can approach it differently as governance. You can say, look, we're going to assemble all the right people on the bus and put them, determine what seat who sits on and why, and then determine our destination. Some say you ought to have your destination before you determine where your bus is going to be headed, right? But because the way the president won the election, it took a coalition of different political bedfellows to get to where he got to, for the sanity of the country and for the sort of political harmony of the country. He had to draw from different groups, different political organizations.
And permit me, sir, and I agree with you, right? The nation of the country at the time, on the political side, you needed to collaborate with other people in order to win, because he was again a very popular president. So I get that, but let us not forget, Unity Party served our country for 12 years. So this is an experienced political party that should have known from the get-go you needed to have a government in waiting, irrespective of collaborating with others. I'm not sure that was the case in order to hit the ground running for the rescue operation. That's the question I'm asking, because you asked what is the context of the question.
They had a government. They look. They had what you have is Carlington government. You have, look, who's going to be my justice minister? Who's going to be my minister of finance? Who's going to be
And you think they have something like that? Because
my great well, I mean, they had some trials and errors when they got there, put some people there, and there was some controversies. Look, nowadays, to govern and run a country, any organization in the social media, new media age, and so you need a different set of political skills. You need a different set of political communication skills. You may have everything in place. You may have the right people. But you are navigating very rough waters, because the moment you get there, people, in fact, you go to meetings, people are recording you. You're having confidential conversations. People are recording you. They're releasing these confidential meetings and names and people's backgrounds. And then so you came in office thinking that Thomas will be my minister of finance. This person will be my minister of foreign affairs, minister of justice, and so on. And they attack their credential. They attack their biographies. They attack they bring out the history of some kind of immorality or something that may have happened in their past. And then you go back to crisis manage that. Meanwhile, you're forming the government. Meanwhile, you're trying to develop an ideas around what will be my development agenda, what will be my plans, what am I going to invest in, some kind of public investment, what else do I want to do? You have all kinds of balls in the air you're juggling. And so if people don't know how to really communicate and implement a political communication strategy in the social media age, in the FOL, that's where the trouble comes in. These distractions are what creating the perception, creating this sort of.
One would think if there were any political party experiencing better to navigate these trouble waters listing,
yes,
it should be Unity Party, because the social media came in even during the Unity Party's time, and they are engaged in the social media communication warfare, for lack of a better way to put it, when they were in opposition. So they should have done much better. I'm not sure they did. Please conclude on that.
Anthony, quickly, listen, it will not belabor the point here. Listen, yes, I was in Liberia during that time. I was working there. But Dr. Dugo said it wasn't as prevalent. You have Facebook, yes, you had maybe Instagram and others, but the veracity of the information, the way it travels, the way it's disseminated, how it's manipulated. Now you're talking about generative AI. Somebody who knows how to generate prompts, they can sit here and produce some kind of thing you think is reality. You put it out there, and all these things about people. The question you ought to be asking is, okay, so have they understood this context? Do they have the team that can manage all of these political distractions, social media distractions, at the same time governing? So because then what is happening is that the opposition can use that as a means to really create distractions for them.
And if that is your question, I would think that
terrible perception for them. Terrible perception for them
that they could do so.
Let me just say, if I can finish that point, the thing I want to drive home is you create perception from the reality, even if they are doing well in some areas, and they really, because we know, Thomas and everybody here, Anthony, the government came in, put out there a bid and selected Liberian firms to help them draft the national development plans and all of that. They haven't commissioned that thing yet. It's not being launched yet, right? When we say this thing, people say, "Oh, you are apologists. You are there. You're defending. You're trying to say, oh, let's give them time and all of that." But these are the realities. These are the facts. The point is, you have to know how to do your political communication in an age of social media really effectively. You see, the Americans and others are doing. That's what they're doing now.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you so very much, gentlemen. Let's leave it there. Let's move to another question.
Quickly before we go to another question.
All right.
I think I agree with
go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I agree with Ahmed when he says that at the point of the appointment, there were all these drawbacks where people were saying, okay, this person has this credential issue and this person could not fit. But all of that started happening around January, February, when the government took power or when the inauguration took place. I think the place where the government wasted time was between the winning of the election in the second round in January. I think it was the time the government should have taken to actually form the government, so that by January you could just move on to announcing. But we all remember that time in point when nobody know who was
Gentlemen,
going
I
where.
have a special segment for that. We will dive into that good because that is key because you have to have the right people in the right places to be able to develop, to deliver the rescue. So let us not dwell on that. I have a segment for that.
And I
But Tom,
think that
you
time that was wasted,
Mhm.
will continue to affect this government.
All right, Dr. Dude, you wanted to give a few seconds input. Go ahead,
No,
sir.
no, no. I was going to make a point that, I
Mhm.
think he just made my point that
Okay.
there was a waste of time, a lot of waste of time. And also, Ahmed pointed to something that I raised last week again. And that is strategic communication. Government is about communication, it's not about anything else. Whatever you do, if you can't sell it, people will not know it, and perception is created, and that perception becomes a reality. And a good government can go out because, hey, what, they didn't know how to communicate. And I
All right.
think that, you can't say, okay, Bwaka is good or bad. Is Bwaka is saying it. He's saying things are bad. He's saying things are rough. He's traveling every day, as if he doesn't want to be in a country.
Thank
Anyway,
you, gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Du. And folks in cyberspace, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, and this is Tough Talking Thursday. And I'm here hosting in a very tough way. And I think the panelists are discussing in a very tough way. This is what we're supposed to do for Mama Liberia. My next question, gentlemen, is they were set to deliver changes, to make, to bring about the differences. So I want to know now, what are some of the changes and the differences that the government, the rescue mission are carrying on that deserve some credit right now as we speak, before we go to the specific areas on a general note. And let me start with you, Tom. You can take the economic side. It's okay. You don't have to cover everything. But what specific changes are they making right now?
I think Tom is frozen.
Tom Frosin, okay, then Dr. Do you pick it up? What are the changes they're making right now? What are the areas they are tackling that you think, they deserve some credit?
I would say the only rule of law aspect, the ombudsman, although that person, whoever that is not doing his or her job. I don't even know who is it, because they know 90% of government the executive have not declared their assets, and they still go to work. Although the president has done it, so I don't know. You see, that's the thing about putting somebody. You can put somebody in an office, but you can't tell them this is how you do your job. If you get to that point, they say in a government, the only person who's supposed to be a novice is the president. Everybody else is supposed to be a specialist in the area. If you're advising the president, if you're close to the president. So if the president put you as an ombudsman, it's a big step, because Ellen created a job, but she didn't put anybody. George Weah came, he didn't put anyone. So he comes and put you there, and people go to work, they're breaking the constitution, they're breaking the law every day. And the
So just
second
by
one
putting
is
someone there, you are saying that the president deserves a credit there?
well, yeah, ombudsman, yeah, the creation of it, yes, of the post. But how it functions now, how the person is doing his job, that's a different question. Because
Okay.
people in the government have not declared their assets, and the person sitting there, we don't know what they're doing. We have not heard any single serious declaration from this group. And then the other thing is the War and Economic Crime Tribunal.
Mhm.
I think that's setting up the way he got started. It was bad. He recalled, and then he's now recomposing the system, the court system. So I think those two are steps, in the right direction. But to come back to your question about this arrest agenda. Okay, you say we'll talk about it, because I'm going to talk about education again. But let's go on. But
So,
these two are
so
my
you are
area
giving
where
the
I.
government credit specifically in the area of rule of law, and the mention appointing the ombudsman, and then efforts on the war crimes court.
Yeah.
Even though when it comes to asset declaration, you are giving them a maniance because there has not been any accountability for those who are still in violation. So I don't know what kind of credit you're giving them. Is
No,
that
I
a
give
B
credit to the
maniance
president
or
for
C
me. No, no,
maniance?
no. I give credit to the president for appointing somebody to put
Mhm.
somebody in that office.
Okay.
But now I'm saying the person who was put in that office probably is not the right person. Because if he or she sits there and allow people to go to work without declaring their assets as per the Constitution, then they're not doing their job. So it's the case of okay, you create an office. Do you have the right driver? You have the bus, but do you have the right driver? You know.
So that are the only two things you can think of where you think they're making some good efforts and deserving of credit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll say that. Yeah, that's what I know. I mean, I can't say anything about commerce. I can't say anything about foreign affairs. I don't know what they're doing, and
What's about the era of road construction,
Well,
rehabilitation of roads?
the road construction. I think the Minister of Public Works came up and said he made a mistake. So the mud is still there. That is, you can't deny the fact. It's not because you close, you cover your eyes that the sun will disappear, right?
So you're not
So
giving the government any credit because the government, according to the government, was I don't know actually secure $22 million. The public work minister said they spent almost $9 million to rehabilitate the roads so that cars will not get stuck in the mud. Cars are stuck in the mud, by the way. It's not something commendable that they have a good intention to actually correct something that been hampering Liberians' travel in Liberia.
yeah, but I think that again, that's when you project campaign into reality, into governance.
Mhm.
No car will be stuck in the mud. I mean, even in the U.S., you go to Mississippi, your car will be stuck in some back road.
Mhm.
So there will always be cars stuck in the mud. So, but to say, okay, we're going to spend $222 million in 100 days to clean the roads, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. We know what it is. You can clear it during the dry season. When it starts raining, you've got potholes everywhere, even in the city.
Thank
So,
you.
so those things are, I think, again, projection from the campaign to governance, gets you caught up.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Solid, any two or three areas where you think the government making some, very good strides that, we should give them some credit, for the sincere effort, if you like, that they are making?
Of course, Anthony, the way you actualize a massive reform is
Mhm.
you set the stage. You prepare the minds of your people. You also govern by exuding confidence, by restoring confidence, inspiring your people. Right, the economic conditions of the country, global inflation shocked. Various whether it's COVID-19 shocks or our recovery from Ebola to just global economic downturns. All of these things have created difficulties, fiscal and monetary difficulties for everybody around the world. I mean, so that's just as a reframe. But coming into what we've seen and heard, what we're hearing from this president is he sounds very ambitious. He's telling us these bold and big things he wants to do, addressing impunity. If you can succeed in establishing war and economic crimes court, he's addressing all kinds of rule of law questions, giving victims justice, addressing impunity, and sending the strong signals out there to folks that you can't go and just destabilize your country and that's fine, or commit crimes and that's fine. So I'll score them high on there. Also, their focus on infrastructure, on roads. Again, just like the asset recovery thing, they may not have started well, or $22 million mistake is a terrible mistake. If I didn't hear that from that minister, but the public works minister said that and a country where rainy season is a big chunk of the year, you didn't pave the road, you just went and sort of graded the road, and you think it will be fine, it will be pliable. To me, it wasn't realistic, but they were trying to, I guess, I could understand what they were trying to do to create an impression that, listen, we're focused on rules, we're serious about rules, we're going to do that. But what you did was you did something that will come back to haunt you politically, because then the roads will go bad in the rainy season. That's what happened. But that doesn't deny the fact that they're focused on roads, connecting the country, infrastructure, even the public investment idea that they're bringing in the National Development Plan. That is really public sector investment plan. They're creating a separate. So that tells me that that's bold in their thinking. They want to be able to invest in ways that will create massive macroeconomic impact, and so that's good. Uh, and even again, they look at economic renewals. There are some areas of trials. What Sekou Duklu is doing at the port, for instance, right? Bringing some new technologies, new ideas, and discipline in how you run the port and the Minister of Ports and open the economy. What Josiah Jokai is doing at the Civil Service Agency, that's huge. Civil service reform has dogged the government and even development partners for years in Liberia. Look, for 5 years I was working there. Thomas would know who I worked for a major development government, donor government. Civil service reform was a major area of concern. They're trying to tackle payroll reform, for instance. Look at the Ministry of Education payroll alone. You have multiple payrolls, and do you merge them? What do you do? What do you do with ghost teachers and all kinds of things? That was complicated for years. But there is Jokai. It looks like he's moving the needle. It's really aggressive about implementing some basic common sense that is bringing sanity back in the civil service. And I like that. So those are things you don't just look at the president alone, what the president does or says. What the president does is, that Dr. Duke said, is what the ministers are doing, these officials are doing. What they are not doing is what the president is not doing as well. And so we have to look across the government and say, where is this mini positive spot that could spark across the rest of the government? And for us who are in the business of promoting the positive image of Liberia, these are things that we get excited about. We want to encourage the government, encourage people, officials who are looking and doing those positive things. The final thing I will mention is the domestic revenue mobilization side. Look, the LRA, Liberia Revenue Authority, has a $1 billion target for domestic revenue mobilization. That tells you this is a government that is serious about funding.
Well, Ahmed, that pronouncement is not new. The previous government said it.
Yeah, what steps, what measures did it take to reach that $1 billion? If what Double Jala is doing, and he continues to do these things, we'll see significant strides. And Thomas,
what are the things he's doing to achieve that?
You can look. I mean, these guys, I've been following them. Remember, I was there in May and June, trying to help them with some of their leadership development programs. They're really opening across their offices across the country, making them very functional, bringing technology, training people, and then going out to government agencies, educating them about taxes and taxation and revenue collection and how you do it and all of that, how you work across these various agencies that ought to be partnering with the LRA to mobilize and collect revenue. So
are they closing loopholes? What are some of the technologies they're bringing that will lead to government raising more revenue and not the money leaving in the pockets of collectors?
As far as I know, they're making efforts in those directions. They are training people. They are partnering with, for instance, the Swedish tax agency and other revenue authorities in the region to learn how they're doing in their countries and what are some of the new technologies. Again, we're in new media, social media, new technological advancement in the 21st century. You can't sit there and ignore all of that and you think you can govern all right. I mean, here it is that we're dealing with generative AI, artificial intelligence. If you don't master these things,
Mr. Salif, as informed as you are, and because I'm listening to you, I did not hear specific steps, training, and we people are always training. I think the previous government, they were training people as well. That did not lead to achieving that ambitious. I shouldn't call it ambitious. Actually, that $1 billion is a drop in the bucket for the whole.
Well, in our context, that's ambitious. And maybe we've never reached a $1 billion budget that's really has significant impact on development. Most of what we've done is we have a budget that goes towards the wage bill, towards, and that's kind of how we live, like a social welfare state, basically. But they're saying, let's break with that. Let's devise some strategies to break with that. To me, that gives me hope.
And with these efforts that you are giving them credit for, are you in the position to say that with those efforts, the arrest agenda is on course?
I can say, look, they have a lot of work to do So you show that the arrest agenda succeeds because they have some false starts. They have some, topsy-turvy, like ups and downs, and now the president may be correcting some of these, and so
So right now it's not on course yet to your liking.
I like to see them doing better. I want to say, right? They've had some missteps, but that doesn't give me cold feet to say that this is a government that's heading to failure.
Thank you. Tom, we want to hear your assessment of areas that they may be making significant efforts deserving of some credit. And after that, let us know with those efforts whether or not you are prepared to say they are either on course, getting on course, or not there yet.
Well,
Let me remind you, you are focused on liberal resident economists yet, so we are expecting more from you. Go ahead, brother.
yeah, so I mean, if I can just focus on the economy, I don't think the economy is
Yes,
performing
please
very
focus on the
well.
economy.
Yeah, I don't think the economy is performing very well because I think previously growth was forecast at around, I think, 5.2, 5.3. And then after some time, the acting minister of finance came out and said that we are now expecting growth to go as slightly higher, which was, I think he said 5.6 or 5.8. I stand to be corrected. But then if the economy is growing, you expect that to be reflected in the domestic revenue that you collect. So for the fact that the budget was recast downwards, because the LRA has said that it could no longer collect what was forecast initially in the budget that was passed, will tell us that the economy is not doing very well. I also listened to to Double Jala when they went for the last round of hearing on the recast, and he mentioned some of the tax types that are not doing well. And one of the tax type that he mentioned was goods, because we have this goods and service tax, which we call GST, that is now being replaced by VAT. So if you have goods not doing well, it's basically saying that the economy is not doing well, because that's a signal that people are not trading much. So on the side of the economy, I don't think the economy is doing very well, which is affecting domestic resource mobilization. And one of the mistakes we make in this country is that when we talk about the economy, everybody pays attention to the Ministry of Finance. I think we gave the central bank a lot of pass. It's almost like the central bank in this country does not exist. Nobody talks to them when the economy is not growing. And the primary responsibilities of the Central Bank of Liberia and any other central bank is to ensure price stability and also be able to support growth, because the financial sector itself supports growth. When you manage the financial sector well, you make access to finance very easy so that people can be able to get money. Then they can be able to invest in businesses for the economy to grow. But even when we do the national development plan, we hardly talk about the central bank and its role. So it's almost like its independence is, we don't bother what the central bank does in the country. And when we talk about the economy, is the Ministry of Finance, is the central bank, is the Commerce Ministry, the NIC. These are all the institutions that will have to play a role for the economy to be able to grow. So on the macro side, I don't think a lot of growth is taking place. Inflation is doing well. I think it's still around a single digit. Job creation, we have no idea whether jobs have been created or not. And this is a historical problem that we have. Previously, even when Samuel Tua was Minister of Finance, he said we didn't have any framework in place to be able to measure or to be able to collect information on jobs that we are creating. That's a limitation that we need to address. That's something that just Ministry of Finance and the other agencies need to work on. So on the macro side, things are not very good. On the domestic resource mobilization side, I think we need to communicate this issue of the $1 billion a bit carefully. We are not able to collect $1 billion out of a $4 billion economy. Until we grow the economy, for anyone to say that we will collect $1 billion is not realistic. Let's say we will move towards a billion, because right now we are around 700 million. Moving means even if we add 50 million, 60 million, we are still moving towards. The GRM strategy that has been drafted says that we want to increase tax to GDP ratio to around 16%. From I think we are currently around 12%. They're still
And
working on it.
Tom, the 700 million you said we are around, that's projection, right? That's not actual,
No,
isn't
no,
it?
no. We are collecting around that. We are collecting
Okay.
around that. That's actual.
Okay,
That's
let me
not.
ask you,
That's actual.
can I ask you a question though, Tom? You were talking about the bank, the central bank not being efficient or not being seen doing anything. Does that have to do with the fact that we don't control our currency? We don't have any, we are not capable of making our own monetary policy because we use the US dollar. We don't even know how much money is in the country.
We do. We try to. With the US dollar, it's a bit difficult because we have a dual currency regime. So US dollar is something that we don't control. Every action that the Fed takes in the US, to an extent, it will affect us. If they carry their interest rate up and US dollar is flowing back into the US economy, it will affect us. If they reduce it, money comes into the developing world, it will come here. But the problem of us not knowing how much local currency we have on our market should have been addressed when we migrated from the old currency to the new currency. That was the problem the central bank wanted to address. That's why they went to the legislature and asked the legislature to give them the go ahead to print the 64 billion or Liberian dollars. So at this point in time, we should know exactly how much domestic currency we have. For the US dollar, it's a little different because people can bring it in even without reporting it to the central bank. So we should be able to know exactly how much domestic currency we have. The US dollar, we might not know exactly. We know what our reserve is. We know how much we trade normally when we do these open market operations. But to exactly say this is the volume of US dollar we have with the loopholes that we have, anybody can enter through our borders with US dollar. It's a little difficult to know. So that's a bit of a challenge for the central bank, but it should still be able to administer monetary policy to control the commercial banks that we have in the country. They can still control the money supply from the domestic side. And they can still control the US dollar also with the open market operations that they have. So they should be able to do it.
So Tom, can you also touch on access to credit in Liberia? How we're doing compared to say previous years?
I mean, the issue with access to credit in this country is very complicated because, for instance, we have different banks that are operating here. You have the UBAs, you have the ECHO, and all of these big banks. They gave money to big businesses. And then below them, you have these microfinance institutions. You have the Access Bank, you have the Diaconia, and all of these things. So for them, mostly they loan to these small businesses. Because if you can't go to the bigger banks to be able to take money from there, maybe you want 500 to start a very whaler market, you can go to Access Bank, they can give it to you. But the way the banking sector operates is that all of the mature banks, they normally deal with businesses that have what we call in finance hard information. So if, for instance, uh, let's say any of these big businesses that are here, the Seti brother and all of these Indian, Lebanese, they have hard information because they run their businesses, they have accountants that take charge of their books. So if they want to loan money, they can just send their banking, their operation and finance information, their statement of accounts to the banks. But when a whaler market seller wants to go and loan money, they don't have that kind of information to send to the bank. So they will have to go to the microfinance institutions. And the microfinance institutions, they use soft information. So you don't have an account, they will go and see where you are doing your business. You see how much profit you can make, and they give the money to you. So for the past few weeks that I've been here and having conversation with people, those people who are taking loan from these microfinance institutions, they do know that the microfinance institutions, their information is now reported to the central bank because the central bank has this bureau, just like the information that's collected from all of the banks. So if you want to loan money from GT Bank, they can ask the central bank, is Anthony's Sheikh credit worthy? Does he have any default on any of his loans? And then if you've taken loan from Echo, you've not paid, they will tell GT Bank, and GT Bank will not give you the loan. Or if they're giving it to you, they will give it at a higher rate. But that is not happening with the microfinance institution. So what people are doing is they take a loan from from Access Bank, and then they go to Diaconia and take loan because they know that information is not available. Or sometimes they group themselves together. Me, Ahmed, Dr. Duke, one person will go to this other bank, the other person go to the other bank, the other person go to the other side, they take the loan. And in the end, they default. And every time that default rate goes up, which is called non-performing loan, the rate will keep going up and then will affect access to finance. So this is a problem that needs to be solved.
And
The
so,
central bank needs.
Tom, sorry, finally, the issue of interest, you know, and I don't know much about this, it end up affecting the creditors, right?
It does.
How is there a way they can regulate the interest in Liberia when it comes to accessing credit?
It's difficult to regulate the interest because in, in, in in the whole financial sector, the difficulty that we have in the financial sector is different from the goods sector. Where you go to buy a phone, you take the phone, you look at it, you like it, you pay for it, and you take the phone. In the financial sector, they give you the money, and then you go out, and the expectation is you will pay back when the money is already with you. And the major challenge in that sector is what we call asymmetric information. Because you go to the bank and say to the bank, I have this good business I'm going to do. Give me $1,000, I'll be able to pay back. But the bank does not have all of the information they need to really be able to determine what interest rate they should give to you. So what the banks normally do is that some of the people who go to borrow are riskier borrowers. Some of the other people are less risky. So what they will do is that they will set an interest rate that will spread and take care of that risk. So if Ahmed pays his loan back and I don't pay my loan back, the bank will make sure that the interest rate will be able to cover the rates that they are giving me, the rates that I am posing to them because I'm not going to pay back. So rarely do the banks even lose money. So even the time and the resources they commit to recovering when you default, all of that is built into the loan. So when you
Which
hear
means
the interest,
people are paying too much high interest for loans that they are
yes,
taking.
because the rates is high. So that's where this is where in other countries you have these private credit bureaus. So if you have a private credit bureau in Liberia, for instance, that is much more efficient than the central bank. I hear the bankers complain that sometimes they write the central bank, it takes 2 to 3 days before they can respond to them. So if you have a private credit bureau that does that efficiently and include all of these microfinance institutions, promptly. If you need information on Ahmed, you get it at this point in time. If he's risky, you give me a higher interest rate. If he's less risky, you give me a lower interest rate. But for the fact
Thank you.
that we've not solved that problem, they will just give higher interest rate to everyone to cover their risks.
So finally, all that said, where are we now, economically speaking, in Liberia when it comes to this rescue mission? Are we on course or are we not on course? Where are we
I think the government is trying to get on course.
trying to get on course? So should we be hopeful that the government is trying to get on course?
So the government has a concept of a direction.
All right, Tom, thank you. And folks, this is Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday. We are assessing whether or not the rescue mission is on course. We are coming to the most interesting part of this discussion. Don't go anywhere. If you are just joining, we want to say welcome and hit that share button and let somebody form part of the discussion. Gentlemen, let's look at some specific areas right now, right? Let's look at the performance of the executive branch of government in getting this nation on course, getting the arrest mission on course. Are there specific moves, policies, actions, programs that this government has taken through the executive that suggest that we are on course? How you rate the performance of the executive branch of government? Is Liberia on course with the performance of the executive branch of government?
How many days you got for this discussion?
Go ahead. I have every day for the discussion until Liberia can get on course. Go ahead.
It's hard for me to answer the question really. I think Tom and probably the governance guy would probably do better, would do.
So saying you work for two presidents in our nation's history, talk to me, given President Bwaka's performance now, as the chief executive, is he getting us on course?
I think the presidents I work for with different circumstances. Amos Sawyer was during the war, and he didn't have the luxury of sitting down. He had to work 24 hours a day, and he had a very committed team around him. President Sirleaf came in when the country was totally broken down. Every priority was a priority, and things were so bad that progress was very visible. You could feel it. You could feel it because every small little thing that happened meant that okay, we're moving forward. But now you go against that background that Madame Seri left the country sort of. They say it was broke, it was not broke, but there was a system that worked. There was a sort of stability and there was a vision. That vision started with Where came in and did what he had to do. And now Baka is trying to pull. I would say, I always said if Baka can get us to +1, then that's progress. Because I think George Weah took us down to -5. So if Baka can push us to number 1, to +1, that's progress. If you get to +5, that's a miracle.
All right.
So his own personal decision-making process, the way he does it is totally different. The contexts are different. And so therefore it's different. It's very difficult for me to compare him to Amos Sawyer or Ellen.
So, Dr. Du, in your judgment, the president, has he set the right tone and has he put into play the right pace to get us going?
Well, he won the election. That's one. He set up, he formed a government. It took some time. It took a lot of time to put the government in place, but he finally did. And I always come back to this issue of, coalition, that, when you have a coalition, when the coalition is so, it's not like when CDC joined with NPP and other smaller parties, there was no doubt that, CDC controlled the agenda.
Dr. Du, I'm talking about the tone. No, so
Yeah,
when you are a leader, the tone you set, the pace you set, the standards you set, the examples you set, people follow that. Let's forget about coalition, but as President Baka set the right tone, the right examples for others to follow?
Well, he set up his own tone, which is not talking, but acting indirectly sometimes. So that's a different way of doing it. It's just set a new tone for governance. Is it possible that people will be inspired by a president that does not?
Do you think that's the right tone that he has set?
No, I don't think it's the right tone. I would have been more communicative because I've been giving all the problems the country is facing. I think it would have been more, would have been wiser. As Ahmed said it. You have to communicate. You have to have a strategy for communication. Just like you have a strategy for economy, you have a strategy for security, you have to have a strategy for communication. If you don't have that, and one of those strategies is, hey, Mr. President, we need to speak to the people. And when you say we need to speak to the people, it doesn't mean me or you. It means you, the president, need to face the media. When people will come with different. So Baka has not set the right tone in that direction in terms of communicating.
So Dr. Du, before I get to Ahmed, when it comes to travel, the president talked about ending business as usual. Is it an example of ending business as usual when it comes to travel? He got a 10th one-eye emotion.
Well, the people have said it. They tell President travel. Today's headline was what? The traveling president. But he has a big job to do, which is to sell the image of the country, to say this is a new Liberia. We are doing this. These are our progresses, and these are where we're lacking progress. This is where we need cooperation and friendship.
And are you suggesting that the best way to set it is to just be traveling to people?
No, he doesn't have to travel to everywhere. I mean, I went to Rome too. I have my picture here. I went to Rome.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's good.
Yeah.
Oh wow! You met the Pope.
Yeah, that's me and the Pope.
Is that Francis?
Yeah, this Pope Francis.
Okay.
But anyway, but we went to Rome. I went with President Sirleaf also to Rome, but she was keynote speaker for the FO, what is it, agriculture? Yeah, she was the keynote speaker for that year. So we went, and then they were able to get us an appointment to see the Pope. But she went, Rome, but it was not to see the Pope. He went to speak at WFO as a keynote speaker for that night. And they had paid for the ticket. I think there were like 7 or 8 of us maximum.
Thank you, Dr. Du.
Yeah.
Dr. Du, and I don't think you will agree that the president is making a difference on the delegation, because his delegation resembles we as delegation. But I will leave that one there. I have to get to the governance advisor here. Amen. And allow me to call you, for now. All right. Talents, the manpower, the soldiers in the field. That is key to delivering the arrest agenda and rescuing the nation. We're talking about scouting talents. Are the right people in the right places in order to rescue Liberia? Your assessment.
Well, I think, when you take your clues from the president, I mean, I get it that he's not having press conferences every day. He's not doing pressers every day. But every opportunity, for example, when I was in Liberia in June during the cabinet retreat, he spoke. He spoke recently, I think, upon his arrival. He spoke here at the UN. He spoke here at some conference. Whenever he spoke to the Liberian media, there was a journalist who interviewed him on the trip that they just came from the UN General Assembly. When you listen to him, obviously he has a very difficult job, right? The country is in a bad shape. I mean, we have to admit it. We really have to be honest about ourselves and introspect and hold ourselves accountable. When you listen to him, you will listen to a president who is frustrated by people's insensitivity, who is frustrated with people's desire for wealth. Some of whom come from traditional backgrounds. You were born in Grand Cru. You won 34 mayors. You say there are 34 cities there. You want a judge for a traffic code, or maybe only 2 vehicles per month or per week. You'll see. You're not being honest with yourself when you're supposed to be advocating for your people to build hospitals there, clinics, and so on, access to education for kids. You want to build a Palawa hut or something like that. You make big deal of it. You want to become wealthy overnight. You want to drive a $1,000 vehicle. You want to live a very opulent lifestyle. You're not realistic. The mindset, right? So you hear that frustration in the mind of this president, in the words of this president. I do listen keenly. I observe when I see the president and his delegation or his officials and the government behaving in different contexts. As a professional, you want to observe them. You want to listen keenly. What are they talking about? What are they doing, all of them? What kind of meetings are they having? What are they going after? How is that benefit the government benefiting the people? How's the government serving the people? These are the kinds of questions that are running through my mind when I see them in action. So in terms of talent, you also hear him express frustration with the sort of coalition government that he has to deal with, and some of the people that have been brought to him for appointment, and he has appointed them, right? The buck stops with him. But again, you operate in a political context. He's appointing people, he may not necessarily know them or necessarily will have wanted to appoint them, or even have, real good sense of the capacity, the ability to deliver on the portfolio they're holding and things like that. These are the kinds of things you're dealing with, right? So it's difficult to answer that question, given the state of the country, given the task at hand, and the people we see. Not all of them. We can't pin everybody with one brush, but there are a lot of people who are probably in holding portfolios that they shouldn't be, because they're not effective, they're not producing, or at least we're not seeing outcomes. The performance is not showing, and so that's just the reality that we're dealing with. So yes, but again, you come back to that point you made earlier, Dr. Duda. Listen, he's the president. Was it you answering that? Yes, you have all that political marriages and so on, but at the end of the day, the people say President Joseph Numa Boakai Sr., right?
Right.
Yeah.
His administration, his government. This is what he's doing. The traveling president. They're not looking at how these travels coming about. Why is it necessary that the president has to go to the China Africa Forum? The president has to go to Indonesia. The president has to come to the UN General Assembly. The president has to launch a bid for a non-permanent seat. The president has to be speaking to this forum on and that
Mr.
forum.
Salim, I need more from you on my question whether or not the president, got the right people in the right places.
I can add. Can I
Dr.
add
Dole,
something
have
to
a
that
chance,
question,
please.
though?
Dr. Dole,
In
please.
my assessment, from my vantage point, I'm not privy to a lot of things, but again, you look at the people, their portfolio, their performance, their background, and what we've seen so far, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Okay, that's fair enough. I would take that. Dr. Dole, you wanted to say something?
No. I wanted to ask him. I mean, a question to all of you, maybe.
Okay, please go
when
ahead.
you have a coalition government, one thing is that, okay, you first government, you say, okay, I'm going to give a job to everybody. Is it now possible to work out and say, okay, you spend a year doing this, it's over. I'm going to take my own people to run the government. Anybody, is it a possibility? I think that's what you do with a coalition government.
Yeah, you have to have a framework in place to attract talent. You have to have a concerted effort to establish a framework. You identify, hopefully when they have the national development plan and everything, they have that framework in place, right? So we know that these are the challenges. This is where we want to go. Here's the president's vision. These are the types of people, talents, and skills we're looking for to carry out these types of manage these types of portfolios. You set out to look for and recruit those talents. But it's easier said than done because all of these are happening in the political context, right? I mean, it's just not possible for people who really help to get you across the finish line for you to say, look, man, I put you there 6 months, I'm going to move you and I bring my own people there. That's what you should do. But the very political component that will come and say, Mr. President, we can bring another person who is more competent. We believe these are the kinds of machinations that are going on behind the scenes, unfortunately, and a president falls victim to that. But at the end of the day, we would like to see more of the president's own sort of bringing people, his own people, meaning talents that he's seeking out there without any kind of necessarily political trappings, but just because these are people who have what it takes to deliver. And he knows that he's had conversation, people can attest to them, and he puts them there for a particular probationary time frame to see how they do.
And I mean, that was one of the reasons I asked for the tone, the pace, the standard, the example that the president will set. Because these people that supported the president, we can disagree whether or not they also want to see the best interest of Liberia. If the president say, look, I will form a government coalition because I need a coalition to win. Look, Party S, I would prefer you send me somebody that can make commerce minister. Here are the qualities I'm looking for. If you don't have them, I will go to another party. President Bwaga can do that. That very political institution that support him will not fight him because he will tell them, look, I'm looking for the best and the brightest. You supported me, so your slot is your slot. But if you can't give me that person that we want for Liberia to move forward, I will go somewhere else. I don't think
they don't meet XYZ, they don't qualify because that's
exactly. And I think if the president has set the tone and the pace like that, the other people say, well, my man, and even the political leader say, well, we send your name, but you didn't make it. The man is looking for the best and the brightest for the country. But our leader just cave in just because the individual supported them, thereby almost like dashing Liberia's interest on the side and just seeking personal interest. And that is pathetic. You agree with me or not?
Yeah, but that's why I asked the question.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way to do it. The president
that's the way to do it. Yes, definitely.
And,
I think you probably.
And the other aspect is vetting. I mean, you would talk to me about this more. Vetting. What the vetting process you have into play. What the criteria set for the team. I mean, for the talents that we're looking for to move our country forward. This is about our country. We need our best and the brightest. Other people can come and fit other places, but not at the time because you sounded the munya munya, or Dennis will say you were in the proverbial poo water. It's not the best way to serve our country. And I think these people, they do this to us all the time. They need to start. We need a leader who has put that foot down. Tom, my question for you, you're not on the political side too much, so let me give you something juicy. Tom, we're talking about departing or departure from the business as usual and setting the right pace. In what areas you think the government is showing sign of departing from the past or from business as usual? I'm tough today, my man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Ahmed mentioned the work that Josiah is doing at the CSA, and this is very critical.
Okay.
You know, this country has 5 point some more million people. Not all of them will work in the government, but their livelihood depends on the 70 or 60 some more thousand persons that work in the government.
Mhm.
They are the ones that need to deliver on growth. They are the ones that need to deliver on basic services, health, education, and all of that, right? So if the public sector does not perform, even with the private sector, you talk about private sector led growth, it will have to be the public sector that will create that environment for the private sector to grow. So these 68, 65,000 people who go to work every morning, if they don't do well, the country is not going to do well. So in terms of some of the sectors where we see a little bit of movement on the CSA reform, I think that's going along. But again, to what end? Quite recently, they launched this issue of credential audit. So those people who will be identified in the public sector for not having the right credential for the positions that they are in, what's going to happen to them? Are you going to reskill them? Are you going to bring in people who have skills? And this is one thing I have to say to you, Anthony. This is now 2006, 2007, 2008. At this point in time, governing the country is becoming much more complex because you have this internet revolution that has come. You have climate change. Morovia is overly getting flooded every time there is rain. So we have to pay attention to climate change. We have to pay attention to the internet revolution that is here. So governance is very complex. You need people who have skills. If we have had this public sector for a couple of years now, they've not delivered on growth, they've not delivered on improved services, and you still want to maintain the skills that you have, how sure are we that they are going to improve? If you are not reskilling them, you are not retraining them. We don't have a system where we have this on the job training where every month or every 2 3 months people go for online training to just be able to improve your skills. The government might not even have money for that. So this is the point to really be able to attract talent. They might not be here locally, they might be in the diaspora. But I also think there are people here locally who have gone to school. Many of the kids have gone to Cyprus, some of them gone to Rwanda, to other places, they've gone master degree in
India.
India. Why don't we get these people in this specific area? Statistics is very important, right?
Yeah.
Statistics, data analysis, and all of that. Get people who can analyze data for you so that decision making is data driven. And you have to attract these people into the public sector. But if you have people already occupying those spaces and they are not doing work, how then do you make progress? So in terms of sectors that we are seeing some movement, CSA reform is going on, but to what end? This is the question that we need to ask. I've also seen some little bit of work being done by the Bureau of State Enterprises. I keep talking about this because our state enterprises, to an extent, have become, instead of supporting the economy, they just raise money and then they do this CSR, corporate social responsibility, and all of that. They've not been really managed well.
Shouldn't you get rid of those things? Those socialist idea of government owning businesses? It makes no sense. This was the
All right.
1960s ideas.
Yeah, that'll do. That we'll put that for debate another time. Tom, I want to start with you on this question of budget. Whether or not the budget showcase the government priorities and whether or not those priorities actually align with their rest agenda. How you think the government is doing with the budget priorities aligning with their agenda, their rest?
So, like I said initially, the budget that is being implemented was developed by the previous government.
It was
The
recasted. This
legis-
is the Unity Party's budget now, so Jonah will not take that one from
but
yeah.
recast meaning you just tweaking the budget, but it was already in place. They just reduce the amount because
The
we will
entire
not
the
generate.
entire budget of Liberia, we know, is a template that they can make adjustment to fit their priorities, right? So they had an opportunity to recast the budget. So I don't want that explanation. Oh, well, no, it has been recast now. This is the Unity Party budget. When you look at it, I read it. Do you think it showcased the government priorities, and are those priorities actually in line with the arrest agenda?
So let me clarify this. Right now,
Please.
there's no arrest agenda. There's no development plan for the country. When the government took power, they
This
had a
is this is
100 day
breaking
delivery.
news.
No, there is none. Since the 100-day deliverables ended, there is no development plan for the country. They're still working on it. They just said that by the end of November they are going to launch it. So there is no
So,
development plan right now that is guarding the budget process.
and there
You
is
can
no
either
arrest agenda. Also, you said
no,
that.
no, there's no arrest agenda. It hasn't been finalized. They have been having consultations, and I think at this point in time, the consulting firms that they hire are doing the writing of the plan.
John,
The
I
current
think I
minister
think
of
I think the government would take issue with you for you to say we
no,
don't have an arrest agenda.
what I'm saying, we don't have a national development plan. Nobody can
Okay.
argue with me on that. We don't have it. The one we had was the 100-day deliverable plan, which the Ministry of Finance took a long time to be able to even finalize. We had a draft that was moving in chat rooms with empty
Yeah.
cells. Nobody know what happened to it until when the 100 days were close to ending. Then they brought in something which was more like the implementation strategy. They really did not have the activities that they said they were going to implement. And then when it ended, the Ministry of Finance came and said they achieved 87%. How did they compute that? All of us don't know how it happened. So my point is, the national budget was developed. The legislature was kind enough to push it back to the new government to say, okay, go back and do work on it and send it to us. It went to the legislature. The legislature complained that it wasn't done properly because there was now no provision for even the president travel and all of that. So the legislature basically actually developed this year's budget. And this is where the trouble came from. Because it was not properly done on the executive side, it got to them. They had to now call these agencies to see how much you think you can generate this year. The SOEs, for instance, say I can offer maybe 1 million. They say no, make it 2 or 3. So the revenue envelope extended, but we did have the capacity to generate it, and then we had to go for recast. So my point is, we have to wait for the national development plan to be finalized before we ask this question as to whether the budget is aligned with the national development plan.
But
And this
don't
is why,
happy it, don't happy it, and I'll give you time again. Happy it. The arrest is that agriculture, um, roads, the rule of law, education, sanitation, and tourism. If you look at the budget, these key priorities areas, that's my assessment. Did you see more funds being committed to these areas so as for the budget to align with the arrest? This is the Unity Party's
yeah,
agenda. This is the president's plan.
right. Even though there is no national development plan that has been finalized, but the initial work that was done on the budget, we saw some increment in the education budget. We showed that the government was prioritizing education. In the
Mhm.
recast, it happened to have been slightly reduced because the overall envelope has been reduced. We saw roads being prioritized. The Ministry of Finance, and this is where the public work minister problem came from, right? Because they wanted to prioritize road to the extent of making sure no car was stopped in the first 100 days. They even gave a letter to the Ministry of Public Works to go ahead and commit the government and sign these contracts without the budget being passed. So that was mostly prioritizing the rural sector, and that's how they were able to do all of these things. Education, yes, health was giving some more resources to be able to buy drugs and make sure they are available in the clinics. So in the framework of just looking at these letters, even in the absence of the development plan, I think there was work done towards that. I don't think a lot of resources were committed to tourism. Even now, I think their budget has been reduced.
Yeah,
So
the budget
roads,
for
yes,
tourism,
that
if
was a
not
bit of a priority.
mistaken, should be like 120,000 US dollars.
126 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That does not
yeah.
look like
So
that is a priority area for them.
yeah, it was deprioritized in the request. Maybe they are waiting for the act to be passed before they can give them money. Current coming go.
We hope you're correct. Let me get to Amen. And Amen, you know more about budgeting also, and talking about priorities, and also aligning it with the government, I mean, the president's agenda. When you look at the budget, and let me give you some numbers here. The legislature got initially in the original budget was 53. They upgraded that to 57. For the Ministry of Presidential Affairs, it was around 10. They upgraded that to 12. And you see little call to education, even school like MVTC got 4,000, you know. Do you see that there's an alignment of the government priority with with the budget, or the budget aligning with the government priority in your assessment, looking at the numbers?
Anthony, the overarching problem that we're having with our budget
Mhm.
uh, over the years is the historical thing. It's not one administration thing. Like I said in the beginning,
I agree.
it's a budget. It's a budget for remuneration. It's a budget mainly for wage bill, budget to pay government officials, bureaucrats, civil servants, benefits, and things like that. Um, because a large percentage of the budget, that's really why it goes to, and recurring costs and these expenses that the government makes annually on a regular basis. So our challenge has been to raise the budget envelope or writ large, like overarching overall, so that we're able to significantly increase how much we spend, say, on education, basic services, and as well as investing, in the public, investing in growing the country, developing the country, right? How much goes towards education? I don't care what you've put there over the last several years. That's really not prioritization because it's not enough, given the state of of our education system. The system is really in decay and disrepair and neglect in some instances. Look, I'm doing research. When I was in Liberia, I interviewed people. I was doing field work on education, and I was doing research, asking, collecting data, and asking people about collective action in the education sector. How do you do education development here in Liberia? And some of the figures and data that I found are very astonishing. There are some schools that don't have roof over, kids sit on the floor. There are some schools that are not accessible. There are some schools you have to go by canoe to cross the river to get kids to school and things like that. So if you're talking about budget, you really need a budget that will significantly overhaul that system. How many school buildings have been constructed over what period? Existing schools facilities, how often are they repaired? What is the sanitary conditions, the sanitation conditions? What's the condition of students? What kind of textbooks do you have? All of those things, instructions. When you go on the instruction side, because the Department of Instructions at the Ministry of Education is the nucleus of the education system. These are the people who are molding the minds of our young people, even when you go on the higher education side. So it's lacking everywhere. I don't even want to go to healthcare. They're more favored than education, if you want to believe that, right? The way the structure and the way the budget numbers are. So I'm saying that we have to fundamentally look at how we do budgeting, how we prioritize basic services to the population, and how we mobilize revenue, whether it's domestically or through foreign direct investment, through concessions and other means of servicing the budget. Liberia has to do better than this. We really have to triple our budget envelope. How we get there is the big question. But the way we're crawling, and no budget is going to reflect the true priorities of basic services, even for citizens. So I just want to look at it from that big picture perspective.
Is it possible for the president to come up and say, okay, I'm going to reduce the wage bill by 30%? Is it possible?
Yeah, but it will be controversial. Now, remember, President Weah did a harmonization exercise, an effort to standardize across the civil service, to standardize how you compensate people, how you recruit people, what is the remuneration packages, compensation package for different levels. If you're a director, if you're, if you're an assistant minister, if you're a minister, all these things, the level of controversy a generator, right? That also goes towards the mindset, how we see government, why people come to government, why people come to public service, not necessarily for the sake of public service itself, but that self-aggrandizing intent. So overall, you really to do that, I would say grow the economy to the extent that public sector is not too appealing for people for talents to want to go. You have to go after them, make it attractive to them, that people want to work in the private sector. They want to start businesses. They want to be entrepreneurs. That's how you grow and develop a country. It's not always come from just hiring people and paying government employees and legislators large sums of money and the country will grow. It will not.
And my question on the budget also, and Tom, you can come here. You are a resident economist. So for the most part, we always have either 80 more than that of the budget, committed to recurring expenses. And then at the end of the day, we realize what is left for social development, public sector development is completely minuscule. For example, in this budget that we're talking about, the recast budget, I think what is set aside for public sector development is less than $60 million. All right, then you have almost over $500 million committed to just running the government and paying salaries and all that. Is it possible? Similar question that to do ask for a president to communicate with the nation and say, look, this is what we've done over the years. Let's make a decision to spend at least 40% of our budget or half of our budget to national development. Is it doable? Would that cause trouble for us?
This is where, Dr. Dumi Ahmed be saying, this is where communication can play a role. I mean, at this point in time, it's not even clear what development path we want to follow as a country. And I'm waiting for the national development plan to come so that I can actually see it. Because some other countries have followed a state-led development. The state is going to borrow hugely and invest in building infrastructure. If you look at the recent trouble that Kenya got themselves in, it's not today that problem started. It started with the previous administration. They took a lot of loan and then they started building these highways. They started building train tracks and all of that to reduce congestion in Nairobi and all of that. Ethiopia is also the same, right? So at this point in time, everybody is holding on to themselves to say our debt level is very high. And therefore, we need to focus on building our private sector. But for us, our debt level went up by almost $1 billion, but we don't really see where that money went. What infrastructure did they build? Whether it's social infrastructure, it's whether economic infrastructure, we don't see it. So at this point in time, it's not really clear exactly what path we are going to follow. So routinely, like Ahmed was saying, we just keep doing this over and over, and this is 20 years since the Civil War ended. We are going to 21. And right now, there's a greater pressure for the harmonization to be reversed. People need more salary. So the broader question is, if the public sector is not delivering, then why do we keep paying people who are not delivering? So there's a fundamental question there that we need to answer. Dr. Du was asking, can we reduce the wage bill by 30 million? That was why harmonization came, to reduce it from above 300 million down, so that the additional $30 million could go to public sector investment. But I think the wage bill is still back to where we were. It should be around the same 300 million mark. So this is where you have to communicate with the country. Can you apologize to the public sector employees to say, okay, we can increase your salary, but a couple of years from now when we are able to grow the economy? Because if we are not investing, then we can't grow the economy. If the economy does not grow, you can't get to this billion that you are talking about. We will just keep this 700 million, out of the 700 million, 300 or some more million go to paying salaries, and then the remaining one is not only paying salary, you have to pay for operations. You have to pay for fuel, you have to buy a splash car. By the time all of that operation of the bureaucracy goes out, we left with 20, 30, 40 million dollars for public sector investment, which cannot do anything. Since the Civil War ended, we've now really built new schools in the country. We get GWJC, we get Tubman High, other places. The only new modern schools that are being built now is a World Bank project. This improving results in secondary education. They are building, I think, one school in Magidi, one in Bone, and one in another place. So we are not really investing. And if you don't invest, you won't grow. The approach that Manasseh follow with bringing foreign direct investment to grow the economy, it didn't help us much. Borrowing has not helped us much. So what is the real strategy we are going to follow? This is
And
something we are always.
and Tom, look, Dr. Dude, where you have a strong point. We need a president who will communicate with the people that hey, we have a responsibility to ourselves and our country to tie our waist, as we'll say in Liberia, and do things a little differently. One example is the budget. Look, we'll only spend half of the budget to run the government and pull your team to work. Look, figure this thing out. Use 50% of the budget to run the government. The other one will invest it in our people and in this country to grow the budget. A president who communicates with the people is doable. But then my question is that yeah,
Anthony,
yeah,
quickly, one
please.
radical thing there to do is to resize the government, to right size the government. Some countries have attempted to do that, which means reduce the bureaucracy, right? So you could do the budget, you could go the budget route, the wish bill route, or you could actually go just reduce the head counts, the number of people, agencies, like Dr. Duke was saying. There are certain agencies that are redundant, they're moribund, they're not they're duplicating functions of others. So really do a government audit, not financial audit. Let's see where money and things are. How is the government structure working? How has it worked for us now in the 21st century? How is it working for other people? What structures do we see out there that are efficient? And who are the types of people, the type of talents that are running these institutions?
I
And
agree with you. I mean, we need to reduce the bureaucratic structure of the government.
Exactly.
One
That
second.
way, yeah. Go for it, Tom.
So not cutting it off, but the point Anthony here is raising. This is the whole concept of the medium-term expenditure framework. When you hear MTEF, because the president has his own dream about what he wants to achieve. I want to connect all of the county capitals with roads, right? I want to make sure that there is water and sanitation services available. I want tourism to grow. So that means the president cannot achieve that in 1 year budget term because the budget is just a single year. So this is where the MTF comes in to say we are going to have this resource and we will have a fence only for roads for the next 5 years. And this is why when you look at the public financial management laws, the law of the public financial management law of the country, it says that the president is the chief policy decision maker on PFM. That means the president can decide and say, all the money we got, we take 25%, it will go to road. The other places you're managed. Because when the road sector is developed, the energy sector is developed, eventually it will pull the social sector to move it forward. So this is where MTF comes in. But even though Liberia says it's implementing FTF, it is not following the way MTF itself is implemented. Because in MTF, the Ministry of Finance does the forecast and allocate the resources. They will say, hey, this year we're giving you 100 million. You go and figure out what program is important for you for the 100 million. We don't go ask you why you want to do this year. And you give us a list of laundry list of activities that you want to do. The Ministry of Finance and the President decide based on our medium-term strategy, this is how much we have for help this year. You figure out. If the money is not enough, you need to cut some programs that are not productive, you cut them out. But we are still following this line item budgeting, where we go and ask all the agencies why you want to. Then they come and tell we won't do this, we won't do that. And we are not also doing program budgeting while we are focusing on results. We are only focusing on activities. So today, out of the cabinet retreat that came up, one of the items that are there, they say the cabinet says uh, they want to ensure that program budgeting is enforced. And my question is, have we even introduced program budgeting before we enforce it? You enforce something that is in place, but if you've not
Yeah,
introduced
yeah.
it, how do you enforce it?
How do you enforce it?
So let's
And
bring in
program budgeting has other technical components that it takes time to develop as well. You have to have that monitoring framework, right? The monitoring evaluation framework. So if you
Yes.
determine outcomes and results, right? So then you want to build in a learning and monitoring evaluation framework that goes along with that to know how we're measuring success and what resources can we allocate to what to give us what kind of success. There are all kinds of elements that you can't just declare that we're doing program budgeting. You really have to sit down and do the work.
And what is program budgeting for the benefit of
Aha,
our
that's the
audience?
question I was going to ask.
So
What
so so
English? Yeah.
program budgeting is a kind of budgeting that you do that you focus on results, right? Say for instance, the Ministry of Education wants to build 2 additional schools. Based on our current line item budgeting, we just ask the ministry, okay, what do you need? They say we need sand, we need a plane and everything to build a school. But what result do you want to achieve when you build a school? Do you want to increase enrollment by 2%? Do you want to increase the quality of education? Do you want to make sure that more students can pass in science subjects in the national exam? So in program budgeting, we pay mostly for results that you want to achieve. We are not focusing, the activities are being implemented to get us to that result. So that's how it looks. And then also in program budgeting, you make sure that you combine the institutions that have similar mandates for them to deliver on a specific program. So let's say we have an urban development program. Then the Ministry of Public Works will have to come in with fixing all the roads in Monrovia. Then the police will have to come in to make sure there is security. Then the Ministry of Internal Affairs will have to come and play their role. So you push the agencies to collaborate, not to look at their individual narrow mandates that they have. So in program budgeting, we want to focus on what you will achieve rather than what do you want to do.
All right.
So it's
Then,
just it brings in, like Ahmed is saying, it makes budgeting not
Yeah.
an accounting or exercise, but it makes it more like a program exercise where you have to
Mm-hmm.
bring in M&E people to develop a
Mm-hmm.
framework for you. Let's get the outcomes. Let's get the results. The resources
Yeah.
will come to help you achieve those results.
Mm-hmm. And then they do cost estimates for all of that.
Cost
It's,
estimates and
it's
all of
not
that.
just like, okay, education will give you 30 millions, go and do education. No, we really want to identify specific elements and results and then say what we want to accomplish. We measure that and put money towards it.
my final question on the budget. We have our counties, and you all know the budget. Since the start, I started reading the budget from an Salib time. They always have 200,000 for county development funds, right? I know there's social development fund depending whether you have an investment company in your county and so on and so forth, right? So the 200,000 that what I kept saying, I said, what can 200,000 do for a county in terms of the county's development? Now, in this recast budget, I see that it's been reduced to 186,000, as though the 200,000 was anything, right? But the question I have for all of you, I mean, can we, is it possible to commit more funding to the counties so that the local government on the county level can take some level of autonomy in the counties, like maybe school and water and other? Would that better our situation? Because a lot of the central way we've been doing it has been somehow, not somehow, but actually ineffective. That's why we don't see any development in the counties. You know, I'm talking about
Now,
Mount Grand and Lofa. I
now,
mean,
Well,
now,
can I go?
now you're touching something that
Yeah.
we've been taught. And Tom is the expert who helped to design some of the donor side of work. Yeah, you're talking about decentralization.
Yeah.
You're talking
Local
about
government.
you're talking about devolution. You're talking about revenue sharing. You're talking about the Local Government Act. You're really talking about turning the Ministry of Internal Affairs into the Ministry of Local Government, a ministry that, and then having all the other sectors of government, sector ministries also correspondingly reforming to make sure that you're not just going around collecting taxes, bringing to Central Monrovia, but you are turning the counties into real administrative provinces, administrative units of the country, of the government, so that you don't have the superintendent just driving around or, living in the nicest house in town and driving the nicest car when the president is coming to town ceremonials. No, you're really having them to work, to come up with a plan, to identify what is it that they will do to move the county in which direction with the support of the central government. But then you are remitting, sharing revenue with them back back to the counties so the counties then can implement what the county development plan says that they will do. That is a bit more, it's doable, it's on the books. Thomas, they have worked on it for years, but it hasn't gotten to the implementation stage yet.
I think when you look at it, I mean, the legislator from each county make more money than the whole county.
That is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct, yes.
Yeah, so,
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Each
joke.
of one of them makes more money.
One of them make more
than
money
the
than
whole
the entire
county.
county. So that, it's like, when we talk about the government in Liberia, the government being everybody who work for the state at the highest level. It's like everybody is working in Liberia to feed Monrovia, to feed people who live in Monrovia, in the luxury, the big cars and everything. That's all it is, to buy crash car for people who don't go to work, to buy cars for people who don't need it. That's the problem. The whole country works. I mean, people work in Nimba for probably $10, $15 a day, and they say that's a big salary. But the same iron ore goes through Monrovia, and Monrovia is the one that drinks the cold water. That's the sad part of the economy, yeah.
And that, you are right, that is so sad. And folks, if you want to participate, I posted the number multiple times and I've been displaying on the screen for you to call 605-313-6004. You have to enter the code 791403#, and then you will get connected and we'll bring you in for you to participate. Of course, this is Tough Talking Thursday and we are discussing the topic, is the rescue mission on course? Gentlemen, I think we have exhausted almost the main elements of the discussion that are packaged to drive the discussion. Now that we have done so and waiting for others to call in and participate if they are willing to do so, given all that we've discussed now, my final question here is, what must be done about this rescue mission going forward so that it can get on course? Because all of you are truthful to say, well, it's not on course yet. There's a lot that is left to be done in order for it to get on course. So what needs to be done to get it on course going forward? Let's start with you, Dr. Doe.
I think going forward, it's hard to advise a government.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, I think that, let's say that the rescue plan and the arrest plan are good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be implemented. And they need to be looked at very carefully in the new development agenda, that things really that matter, that have long-term impact on the country are looked at, like education, health, electricity. I always put electricity before roads, because when you have electricity, you run the economy 24 hours a day. The way it is now, you run the economy probably 6-7 hours a day. So you have electricity. So those things, if the president can focus on those things and develop a new budget that focus on his areas of interest, priority, then you will have something. And then put, very importantly, as Ahmed keeps saying, put the right people in the right position. Put people who know how to do things, not just people who supported you. There's a difference between cheerleading during a campaign and running a government. And I think, we may say it, Boakai probably fell into that trap. I think he carried the campaign too much into the government. If you ask me about my other two presidents, Amos didn't have to do that, but Ellen didn't do it. She finished the campaign team was gone. All the young people, she said, no, you're not going to sit in an office. I'm going to send you to school. When you come back, you join the government or you do your private sector, but you're not joining my government. She sent all the young kids to school. And that's, and put people in place. You remember the first government, the kind of people she had in place. So Boakai can do it. His agenda is coming up on his birthday, I think. His development agenda is coming on his birthday, and we hope that he will really, really invest in things that matter. Education, health, basic services. That's development. We always think development is like heavy highways. No. Kenya paying for it today.
Thank you. Tom, what do you think must be done economically? That's your area for the arrest agenda or this rescue mission to get on course?
To be very frank, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the only way you get it done, like you said, is to get additional skills and competent skills into the public sector. I think if you look at the leadership level, we have some ministers and head of agencies that have gone back to places where they were. So that leadership experience will be there. But the place where I think this government is challenged, and even the previous government was also challenged, was at the level of these assistant ministers, who are actually the technicians in the ministries and agencies that's supposed to preside over the directors. And if you look at the directors, some of them have been in positions for 20, 25 years. There are some people who are close to retirement. And that's the highest level you can reach in the civil service. And then you take these young people who have no experience, who haven't worked before, and you make them assistant ministers over these people who are experienced, some of them very competent. So they just fold their hands, they sit down and look at them. So I think that's where the government needs to pay attention. And if people need to go to school, it is these people at that level, in some instances, that need to go to school. When they go to school, they get the skill, they come back, you can then bring them into the government. On the sectoral issues, the Ministry of Finance needs to really up its game. From the beginning of this regime, I don't think the Ministry of Finance has done well. We keep crying that planning has been lost. They need to bring planning back to the table. The current minister has been talking about it. He has been saying they should finalize the arrest agenda, and I'm not even sure how they are going to go around it, because if the agenda is going to be finalized in November, and the next budget needs to be passed this year, because as of January 1, we should be implementing a new budget. So it's a very tight timeline that the ministry has to work around. I'm not sure when they will pass it, whether the legislature will be in session at that time or they'll have to call them back again. On the plan, the National Development Plan, we really hope it can be a plan such that all of the sectors that are highlighted, agriculture, roads, education, health, so that there can be sections in that national plan that present very little plans on each of these sectors as to what we are going to do there. And the other ones that don't make it to the acronym, let them be mainstream. We don't see energy, but it has to be mainstream across, because like Dr. Drew is saying, it is the bloodline for the country to be able to grow. So they really need to wake everyone up. All of the sectors, they need to be woken up. Those ones that are sleeping, all of them need to wake up. When the national plan is developed, all of the ministries, agencies, commissions, let them develop their sector strategic plans, and then they move on to developing their own strategic plans. That's the way how program budgeting can roll if they want to introduce it in Nigeria. But to just say we keep giving money to agencies that don't even have a strategic plan, why should we give you money when you don't have a plan on how we are going to use it? So I think they all need to tie their belts so that 2025 can be a year that we can recover from all of the progress that we have not made in this transition year of 2024. So I think 2025 should be a year to really work hard, and everyone should put their bit in.
All right, thanks, Tom. Our Governor Savasa, what needs to do to get the arrest agenda, the rescue mission on course and moving and delivering the rescue?
I think one area that we touch on a little bit is these counties that we have. We can't just have the counties in name. You know, we should activate county governments. You have people elect their officials. People go back to that decentralization, devolution, revenue sharing, and really be true to the law. And have some of the people in Monrovia actually go and work for the counties. Maybe the county will even pay them more money. If the county is raising revenue, there's a national standard for everything, national development standard. If you want to build school, there's a sort of expectation that the central government has laid in place. If you want to build a bridge or a county, there's a county bridge, there's the county road, there's a county school system. Uh, some of those will be new. I mean, and very revolutionary in a sense, because right now the counties don't have money. You're talking about 200,000 now for county development fund. You have social development funds. If you have, minerals and resources deposited in your county, and there are concessionaires working there, and therefore they're responsible for corporate social responsibility. That's where the social development fund comes in. But I'm saying we ought to reconfigure our public sector. And part of that reconfiguration should be to begin with the counties, to actually turn them into governments, county governments, local governments that can work. They have these superintendents, they should be elected. You have technicians, development superintendents, hire commissioners, really put a structure in place. And then the cities, if you're a city, there should be a requirement for someone to become a city, a town or whatever become a city. And then there are these amenities, they have elections. It sounds cumbersome, but Kenya is doing very similarly, and they're doing quite well, because what they're doing is they have a national standard for if the county is constructing something, you can't just build one bridge that looks different than the bridge in Bomin, a bridge in Nimba, and so on, because there's that national standard, right? And then you come to the central government when there's something that is beyond the control of the county. Similar to what we see here in the US, there's some kind of natural disaster. You see FEMA going in there. Or if something happens, you declare a disaster, and then the federal government pumps money in there. The other countries are doing, the smaller countries, but they're doing very similarly, and they're doing well. I know that sounds like a long-term plan, and that will not answer your question about what can the rescue plan do to get on track or to be on track, to meet our expectations. But I think President Barker promised us that he's coming with bold vision. He's a visionary president. We hold him to that, to look at some of these new ideas and infuse them into how we move the country forward. We haven't done much, so since 1980 happened. We've been dragging. In 1980, they were saying we were not even developing. We were way behind others. But here we are. We've retrogressed over 100 years. According to the World Bank, if you look at it, sort of the development trajectory, I think it's a World Bank, some UN agency. I have to go back and look at that. But it shows that we're way behind, over 30 years behind other countries. We have to be drastic and be innovative.
Drastic and innovative, and I couldn't agree more on those two closing
Can you give me
words.
1 minute on decentralization?
Okay, please, Tom.
So there's a lot of excitement. I see there's a law for the Ministry of Local Government. Everybody is excited. Decentralization is moving forward. But there is a mistake in our local government law that we need to rectify. If not, we'll go 10, 15, 20 years. We'll have to come back to solve that problem. In decentralization, you have to clearly define the roles and responsibilities of the local governments. In our own language, they call it expenditure assignment. So when you look at our law, there are two assignments in every local government act. We call the revenue assignment, that is, you define what revenue will be collected by the local governments, and then you do expenditure assignment. What are the things that they will spend on? What are their responsibilities? You clearly define it so that you don't have an overlap between the national government and the sub-national government. Like Ahmed was saying, in the US, water and sewer services, education, these are all local government. The national government can still have national programs to be able to buttress what they are doing. But the limitation of our law is that when it was drafted by the GC, it did have all of the expenditure assignment. You look at all of the ministries and agencies, what they are doing, and you take portion of what they are doing on the service delivery side and give it to local government. So that made the local government law to be very long when it went to the legislature. Through the consultation process for it to be passed, the lawmakers, I think either in the 53rd or the 54th, they complained that the law was very long for them to sit and go through. So the law needed to be summarized. In that process of summarizing the law, they cut that portion from there. So the local government law is an amputated law. It doesn't have any expenditure assignment. It's not clear what the local governments will do. And the rates that we are following is we'll be sending money to the local government without defining what they will do with it. And the way they will use it will be the way they have used the county development fund. We can't hold anybody accountable for using the county development fund because we've not even assigned rules and responsibilities for them. This is something we need to rectify. Also, the law has no regulations. No regulation. We are moving ahead to implement it. If we can solve that problem, we'll be sending money and there will be no accountability. What do we hold them accountable for? So now we are developing county development agenda for the counties. What is the plan meant to help them do? They have no responsibility. We've not assigned it to them. So what are we putting in the plan for them? So this is something we need to come back to resolve. That's the beginning point for decentralization. Say this is your responsibility. When we assign it to you, then we send money to you to deliver on it. When you don't deliver, the citizens hold the local government accountable. But at this point in time, the local governments have no role and no responsibility.
You know,
Thank you.
maybe
Go ahead, Aldo.
I was going to add to that that maybe we need to look at the whole structure of the state. Like we never sat down and say, is this really this kind of state we want? This is the kind of governance we want in Liberia. I mean, we took the colonial government after the coup. We followed through. The war came. Everything broke down, and then after the war, what we tried to do, we tried to resurrect the old system without saying, okay, what do we really want? We never sat down to think about that, to restructure the government to say, okay, this is what do we want? We broke down the past. How can we build something new? But instead of that, what we tried to do was to simply recreate the past. And that's why we keep repeating the same mistakes.
Well, folks, don't ask me what we need to do because you don't have leaders who will do that. But I would say it for the good of Liberia. The national budget, 50% of it should go to public sector investment. All government officials' benefits should be eliminated. Scratch card, buying cars for them, all of that should be eliminated. They can keep their salary. If the guy working at Ministry of Information, who is getting 2,000 Liberian dollars and 40 United States dollars, goes to work, then the minister who is making that $5,000 can get a car and go to work. Is that difficult? It is not difficult. If we agree to do it, we can do it, but you don't have leaders who will do that. Look at the senators and the representatives, each of them making more than the counties that they represent. That is pure evil. A country like Liberia will not go anywhere with that kind of behavior. So eliminate all the benefits, reduce their salaries, and then get rid of benefit completely. The president needs to speak to the people and tell them that as the people will have a responsibility to develop our country. Eliminate traveling. President Bouakai does not have to travel for Liberia to survive. There's something called cell phone. You can call Washington. Maybe lobby with Congress for at least 2 years. If they're granting that audience to address the United States to ask for $20 billion, then he can come to America. When he get a commitment that, yeah, we'll give Liberia the $20 billion because you said this is how you will spend the money, then he can come. No need for traveling. The money the president is spending on this travel completely useless. We got embassies in those countries. They can represent us. The MOUs that the president breaking, we could stay together because whether the finance minister show up, he is a representation of the Liberian government. The president, in my judgment, does not make any significant difference. What would make it different is when the president is traveling to the counties. President Bouakai has not made any intentional travel to the counties to thank the people and talk to the citizens, the challenges that he has experienced and the austerity measure that he wants to put into place to make things better tomorrow. He is incapable of even communicating that to the people. Do we have a leader who will do that? Another thing I'll learn with is Talents. Who are the people you are putting in charge of the ministries and agency? What skill set are they bringing? Do they have the capacity? Do they have the know-how to be able to deliver the results? And when they are not delivering the results, what do? Do you keep them there because they are from your party? This is what we see. One example is Ami Munda, who just resigned. The president could not have the fortitude, the tenacity, and the temerity for him to fire him for embarrassing his government. But why would the president even be able to do that when this very president is spending 1.1 million on bulletproof car for him as VP in the terrible economy when no one is against his life? This is the situation that we have. I speak this way because I don't care, but I care for Liberia's interest more than the interest of these politicians. Do we have people who can make these kind of decisions? The little that we are generating, if we are committing it to education and so on and so forth, we will be getting somewhere. But look at how much, this is the first budget since I started following budgets from 2006 that has committed over 90% of the budget to recurring expenses. The worst budget ever that cut county development from 200,000 to 186. That commit just $4,000 to MVTC. Monrovia Vocational Training Center, $4,000. I didn't say 40, 4,000. Other countries in Africa are even raising billions from tourism. You commit just 120,000 to tourism. Where is the seriousness here for us to go forward? If leaders in the developing countries are seeing that this president is in his country, he's instituting reform, he's not traveling, they will come to you. The U.S. embassy is there. The last time I checked, the European Union made a contribution of $180 million to Liberia. President Baka has not gone to Europe to talk to all the Europeans for us to get our money because the European has a representation. If you put into play domestic reforms, the people will come. They say, this man is serious, making reform in his country. Let's see how we can help. This travel, when people are stealing, when no accountability and so on and so forth, they will have no reason to give you money. I rest my case. This has been Tough Talking Thursday, and I thought to close very tough today. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for what you do for Liberia. Let's keep talking. Maybe one day we'll have a leader who will be bold enough to make the bold decisions to move this country called Liberia forward. On that note,
vote Anthony here, President.
Dr. Do, you vote me. I get Ahmed, I get Dennis, I get Tom. We will make something different, but I'm not running for president. I'm not a guy for that job right now. So on that note,
how's Dennis?
On that note, this is how we
no callers tonight. No
they call us
Morris,
I meant to say you were
Livingston,
all
regular callers
on point. They say you were on point. Maybe they are mourning the departure of Ami Munda and all that. I don't know what's going on. Open the line.
If I can just make a comment on that, at least for once, I made a comment on your post. At least for one, let's have a trade economist, somebody that got background in industrial policy to go to the Ministry of Commerce. We're tired of the RPD people. We're tired of the RPD people. They just go to that ministry, they only focus on RPD. The ministry is the Ministry of Commerce and Industry.
Yeah.
It has a responsibility to
have to industrialize our economy.
Industrialize, yeah, and create jobs, improve manufacturing share in GDP. But everybody go over there, they just bring the RPD. When people bring the goods, then they do inspection. That's just what they do.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Ahmed. And thank you, Dr. Dude. And folks in cyberspace, thank you for watching. We will now close with our song that says, we are all indeed Liberians. Enjoy yourself and bye-bye.
We are Liberians.